This is Marble Duel. We're on Xbox Series X. Not really anything too intense details-wise to go over for this one. It's actually kind of an interesting take on the whole marble type of genre of game, strategy-wise. So what you're doing is you're kind of competing against someone. So this means you're sort of working through this story. It's got this kid, it's got like a fantasy kind of grim tale to it. It's actually quite grim in terms of the style of it. But yeah, you're working through that. Every level is a best of like 3 stars for performance. And then from there, you're also able to compete in local 2 players if you want to go against each other. And that's where the whole marble duel element comes into play. So what I find interesting about this one, aside from the fact that you are battling one another, is that what you're doing is also a series of spells to a degree. I don't know if you've noticed that, but we've got different balls with different colors. So this red here is basically like a strike, it's an attack. And then there's also this upgrade system where you can improve your various abilities further. So I've increased my attack a little bit, so I do a little bit more there. Then we've got green, which is like replenishing health. There's blue, which is like your shield. And there's different options past that as you progress further along. And yeah, it's just kind of this interesting back and forth kind of battle where you need to make the best chains possible in order to win and survive, which is, again, kind of fascinating if you've kind of been following along in terms of what you're doing mission-wise. And then you get some gems, and that's how you upgrade things, and then you get to the next level. So aside from just battling one another, there are special situations that pop up along the way as well in regards to certain, setups which are kind of interesting, and more direct battles too between the different characters as they sort of interact and talk to one another. Again, it's actually kind of an interesting title. It's not necessarily the hardest sort of thing, but obviously the complexity and the challenge of it continues to grow as you progress through these different missions and you get different challenges along the way. It's kind of really fascinating because of this balance of, trying to protect your shields, trying to increase your health, and then, also trying to do damage as well. I think that kind of keeps it dynamic and offers a lot of challenge. And then there's also that whole element of kind of chaining together the different attacks in order to be more effective against your opponent, which is also kind of interesting as well. So it's a lot of back and forth, making the right choices, and then, if you're having problems, having to go back and revisit things in order to, do it properly or, well, be more proficient against the opponent that you're taking on. Again, it's a fairly simple in concept game, but yet surprisingly dynamic in terms of the different challenges and the combos that you're setting up, because there's also the element of, you see the level structure here where he's got one side there and I've got one side here, and basically my choices are more limited, and then they've got different map layouts, and it's just got, of course, this really interesting sort of like vibe and fantasy style to it that I actually quite like. I think that element of it's quite well done and a little bit different, because that's the main thing, is I've played like a number of similar type games in the past in regards to these sort of marble type things where you're fighting chains, you're battling stuff, and I just think the dueling element of this one is quite fascinating, because it is that back and forth battle that you don't really see in a lot of the other, similar types like this. Can we actually get the win there? Nice, that's what I'm talking about. And yeah, it could be pretty close, and sometimes you do not as great, and then you go back and you try to get more stars. That's really the gist of it. And then there's this set of maps you're kind of going through in the main area where you get to basically go into different areas. It just seems to have a ton of levels available for you if you want to just roll through it battling. I should also mention that with our little mosquito shooter here, it's very intuitive in regards to swapping between the different things. Wow, that was some striking damage towards me. That's a little unbelievable. Kind of interesting. And I mean, it's pretty easy to line things up and get the shots going and do your damage. And you also got to be smart, going too hard with the damage and then kind of leaving yourself vulnerable for getting eliminated can be pretty intense, right? You gotta balance it out. That's the big thing. It's all about balance and being able to take out your opponents while not getting eliminated, which could happen at any point if you've got some tougher enemies, and you gotta get your diamonds up in order to improve your skills, in order to be able to handle those more hardcore situations. Definitely always something in flux with this one, you know. What you're doing mission-wise. It might open it too. And then you also got to think about your enemies as well, specifically what they're going to do. Ooh, that could, you know, cause the end of you along the way. Only getting a ton of health out here. Because you could leave yourself open to be very vulnerable for attack if you don't set up the right combos, and then you just get wiped out. But it does seem to be decently fair, and then you get the chains with the balls kind of coming together and hitting things. Blue, I don't really have a good shield combo available, so I might as well go for that. And sometimes, you know what, it just doesn't pan out. You just don't get lucky in terms of the setup of the balls, and that's just basically the end of you. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a fascinating situation, and something that is, again, a little bit distinct. I like the grim fantasy vibe as well. It's weirdly dark, if that makes sense, but at the same time, you know, appropriate, I think, for all audiences as well. So as you can see, we've also improved our health this time around because it's been getting a little bit close, and you need to balance those in the upgrades in order to actually not perish right away, because that can be one of the big challenges too, is balancing your upgrades and what you want to be able to do, attacking, defending, getting more health. And obviously, you know, the complexity of the game increases as well as you get into like the later levels, and you get more and more kind of options on the map to use and take advantage of during play. It's just got like a really neat vibe to it, easygoing enchanting music, a pretty calming atmosphere, and kind of a cool battle situation. That's the big part of this that I find really fascinating, is that it's not just like trying to battle against the marbles and getting them, stopping them from getting to where you are, but actually actively kind of competing against a quote-unquote foe that is actively trying to destroy you. And then of course you've got like the kids dealing with it, so, you know, it's like the story sort of little thing that pops up occasionally with some lovely artwork. I think the art aesthetics are kind of nice. It's a very subtle, easygoing sort of situation in that regard, so don't expect anything too wild, but at the same time, you know, fairly lovely and fairly distinct, and just easygoing as I battle against this creature foe here that seems decently tough. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say really about the quality past that. I think it's a good game for what it is, and it's decently interesting and fascinating for, you know, the type of genre it presents. Something a little bit different for strategy in that, and puzzles as well, I guess it would fit under there.